Welcome to Mike's Corner. I'm Mike and this is my corner. On this channel we talk about money, finances, insurance, investments, basic economics, essentially everything you should have learned about in high school but didn't. So what did you learn about in high school? Well, you learned that Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, and that helped you when? During a Trivial Pursuit game a couple years back? Exactly. Money is a thing that's a part of our life every single day. And when we understand money, money works for us. When we don't understand money, we work for money. If you like what you hear, subscribe, hit the like button, ring the bell, do all the stuff you're supposed to do on YouTube. I want to continue the discussion we started a little while back about money and happiness. Happiness can be kind of divided into two categories. You have a temporary happiness and you have permanent happiness. And the question we have is, can money buy us happiness? And I think we can say that with some certainty, money can buy a temporary happiness. And what is temporary happiness? That's the type of happiness you have when you're in the convenience store and you buy a scratch-off ticket and you win $1,000. It feels really good in that moment. You're like, wow, this is amazing. And then you go home and you tell your friends about it and you use the $1,000 to buy something fun. It's temporary though. It'll last you a day, maybe 2 days max. Now what's interesting is that same $1,000 for somebody in a third world country will have a much more permanent effect. For somebody in a third world country that doesn't have shelter, that $1,000 will buy you a warm place to sleep. It'll put food on your table. It'll give you a permanent betterment of life. So $1,000 to somebody in a third world country buys a huge amount of happiness. For us, really, what can $1,000 buy? It can buy me an iPhone. It might buy me 230 pumpkin spiced lattes at Starbucks, 400 bacon, egg, and cheese croissants at Dunkin' Donuts. Or if I wanted to improve my life a little bit, I could buy a used washer and dryer. That'll save me a trip to the laundromat every week or so. So can money buy happiness on a temporary level? Sure thing. What else can money buy? Money can also buy choices. Do more choices give us more happiness? And that's a tough question to ask. There's a restaurant, I use that term loosely, called In-N-Out Burger. You find them out west. And when you walk into In-N-Out Burger, you have two choices, with cheese or without cheese. Now you can also get fries and everything else, but you basically have two burgers, one with cheese, one without cheese. There's a line that's about a half block long outside the busiest In-N-Out Burger in Las Vegas, Nevada. And there people line up and happily go in and make a simple choice, with cheese or without cheese. When they walk out of there, they're generally content because they got what they wanted and they only had two choices to make. Now take that same philosophy and walk into a place like Capitol Grill. There you have a menu that's about 2.5 pages long and you have an assortment of choices. I can get the ribeye, I can get the rack of lamb, I can get the chicken, and I may have a wonderful meal. I enjoyed my meal and I had let's say I ordered the filet mignon. And afterwards I sit there and think to myself, boy, I don't know. The rack of lamb, it looked pretty good. And I start to question my choices. And I actually question whether I was happy with all the extra choices I had. Do more choices give you more happiness? Not necessarily. Now, how about making more money? You would think that if a small amount of money gave you some happiness, a large amount of money would give you more. But does making more money actually translate to more happiness? Again, back to our example of the third world country. Anywhere from $0 up to about $60,000 a year, there is a steady incremental level of happiness that comes along with that. Every dollar I make, I get more happiness. But there's a weird thing that happens right around $75,000 or $100,000 where the happiness doesn't keep track with the income. A survey of more than 1.7 million people in 164 countries was done to put a price on optimal emotional well-being and found that between $60,000 and $75,000 a year is the sweet spot. And while the sweet spot may be around $70,000 a year in income, the survey also found that there is an optimal range that goes from about $90,000 to $100,000 a year where we are able to fulfill long-term goals and achieve maximum happiness. What was interesting though is above $75,000 a year, the numbers started to taper down. Not the income numbers, the happiness numbers. the amount of happiness that was generated from income levels in excess of 100,000 actually fell compared to happiness levels at income levels at $60,000 or $75,000. Why is this? Because at levels in excess of $100,000, we end up with unhealthy social comparisons. I end up looking at my 50-inch TV, and while that was making me happy, it only made me happy as long as I didn't look at my neighbor's 75-inch TV. And I saw that, wow, this option exists. I was happy with my Ford Taurus until I happened to look at my neighbor's BMW M5, and all of a sudden, my happiness fell. I still have the same stuff I had before, but my happiness fell because I compared what I had to somebody else. Once we reach a level of income in excess of $100,000, we now have more choices. And while money can buy more choices, we found before, more choices don't necessarily make us happier. So what does make us happy? Money can make us happy to a certain point, but there are certain things in life that provide happiness irrespective of their economic value. For example, relationships. Well, good relationships. Although, arguably bad relationships provide some happiness as well, because the bad relationships help us know and appreciate good relationships. But the relationships we have really can't be measured in economic terms, but they can bring immense happiness. The fact that you have kids and you get to spend time with them, family, friends, those are more experiential type things than they are economic things, but they bring happiness. Is there anything really enjoyable about going to eat at a restaurant? Is the food at the restaurant that much better than the food that you have at your house? No, it's the idea of getting together with friends and sharing socially with them that brings happiness. What about security? That's another thing that can bring happiness. If I feel safe and secure, I may not have a lot of money, but I have a sense of security. Health is another one. If I have my health, I can have a great deal of happiness. Self-esteem. Self-esteem is something that when we're happy with ourselves and we like ourselves, we have a great deal of happiness in life. Job satisfaction. Even though your job may not be paying you a ton of money, if you like your job, you never actually have to work a day in your life. These are all things that we can enjoy that are not economically based, but they bring a high level of happiness. So then what happens when we bring money into the mix? I think what we can do, and this answers the more eudaimonic question. This answers the more permanent happiness question. Can money buy permanent happiness? In and of itself, probably not. But money can buy us things that will bring us happiness. So what are some things that we can buy with our money that brings happiness? I would suggest that buying experiences as opposed to buying material possessions. A few years ago, I became a minimalist. I got rid of the vast majority of my wardrobe. I ended up with cutting back on all the things in my life. And I started to travel the world. In the last 3 years, I've been to about 50 different countries, and that's a different YouTube channel entirely. I don't have it. I'm just saying you could have a YouTube channel about traveling the world. And in that travel, I found that, yes, I spent money to get those experiences, but those experiences brought me immeasurable happiness. Things that I would never have been able to get from, let's say, an iPhone or from a brand new washer dryer or a 75-inch TV. Being able to see the Burj Khalifa in Dubai or seeing the pyramids in Egypt is just something that you can't really describe it. So buying experiences instead of buying material possessions is a way that you can use your money to buy you happiness. A second way you can use your money to buy happiness is using your money for other people. Giving some of your money away. A study was done at a college out west where they gave college students various amounts of money, $5 to $20, and they gave them two choices. Some of the college students, they said, you could go and spend this money on yourself. And the other college student says, you have to spend the money, but you have to spend it on somebody else. And they asked them beforehand how happy they were, and then afterwards they surveyed them, and come to find out, the students that actually gave money away were happier in doing so. Now, most kids see $5 and they think Starbucks, and that's where they have to go. So the kids that went to Starbucks and bought themselves a latte, they experienced a bit of happiness. But the ones that went to Starbucks and bought somebody else a latte, their happiness level was much higher. So I think when we actually use our resources to buy things for other people or to give things to other people, we find that we can actually spend money and get increased happiness. One of the other things we can do is we can buy many small pleasures instead of a few large pleasures. What do I mean by that? When you buy a bunch of small things, you're constantly getting yourself something new. So you're constantly getting a little bit ahead of happiness, a little hit of happiness, a little head of happiness. Buying that one big thing, it has to be amazing enough to last you a long time. Another way that we can buy happiness is by delaying our purchases. Anticipation is oftentimes better than the actual event itself. You think about it when you're planning a vacation. We have families that plan a Disney vacation. They go on the website. They look at the magic that's going to happen. They plan their entire day, where they're going to stay. And then when they get down there, they realize it's 95 degrees, incredibly humid, and we waited in lines all day. The actual event is nowhere near as enjoyable as the planning was. When we delay purchases, what we do is we actually build up anticipation for those purchases, and that anticipation is actually part of the happiness of the purchase. Another way that we can use our money to buy happiness is to consider how our purchases are going to affect our time. You might think that having a beach house would be wonderful. The family can come down, we get together, and we're on the beach every weekend. It's amazing. But when we consider the totality of that purchase, we don't look at the leaky roof or the fact that family can come down and visit us. All the family, even the ones we don't want. That's where, when we consider our purchases, we need to consider the time element and the other aspects that come along with those purchases. The last thing we can do to make our money help us buy happy experiences is to pay attention to what other people buy. Because if nothing else, we're all human and we have similar likes and dislikes. If 90% of the population enjoys this particular thing, it's very likely that you're going to enjoy it as well. So use other people's experience and what they've purchased to do that. Can money make you happy? Yes, it can. It can make you happy in the short term, and if you direct it the right way and use it the right way, it can also make you happy in the long term. So then let's figure out what we need to do to get some money. That's what we're going to be talking about on this channel over the next several weeks. I'm Mike. This is my corner. We'll see you around.